Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Heather, and on this channel we like to walk a very fine line between a shopping addicted makeup monster and a responsible adult with a makeup hobby. Now, I really enjoy eyeshadow singles, duochromes, multichromes, blush, highlight, lip gloss, basically everything except pressed glitter, and today we're going to be looking at some of my winter palettes. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, stick with me, we're getting into it right now. And I will say that the Michaela Part 2 palette, somebody had mentioned that this is like a super wintry part of this particular palette, and I happen to agree. I think this is kind of like borderline late fall, early winter kind of a palette, but I thought, you know what, in my collection I have so many other great wintry palettes that we can do better than this one. So that's what I want to show you. I'll show you two palettes that I picked up that I haven't used yet. This is the Sorcerer palette from Fantasy Cosmetica. This is the original version that is glued in shades, not magnetic shades, but that's all right. And the Copacetic Haze palette definitely gives me the like cool toned wintry kind of vibe. A lot of what I'm going to be showing you is cool toned wintry blues, purples, pinks, pastel, or like deep smoky kind of stuff. So hopefully that's what you're into. This is a BYOP that I put together to dupe out the Amy Hearts Beauty Amy Loves Makeup collab palette that I was not able to get my hands on. I tried, it didn't work out. I ended up getting scammed and had to fight with PayPal to get my money back. But yeah, that's my version. It has a lot of Give Me Glow in it. There's some Clionadh, Looksy Beauty. These are the Give Me Glow. The big pans are all Give Me Glow. I believe that's a Clionadh Circle pan. I think this one came out of a Morphe palette. Oh no, this is Eris from ColourPop. But yeah, this one I really like. Now, other things that are kind of in that like berry tones, the Berry Icy palette from Simply Posh Cosmetics. Obviously, this one has this whole area of kind of like soft blue, pastel, wintry type shades, and then you have these deeper berry shades. I do still think this all works really nicely for fall and winter. I don't care as much about these two particular rows, but I think everything else in here works really nicely for the theme. Now this palette I'm just trying out, so I've only done a couple looks with it so far, but I am really impressed thus far, and that is the Pretty Grunge palette from Huda. This is her holiday palette for the year, and it looks like this. Now again, you have two rows of kind of some beigey browns, which I don't really care too much about, but the other 12 pans in this particular palette I think are a really nice representation of kind of that smoky fall sort of berry undertone. I think that looks really pretty. And our holiday palette from last year, Rose Quartz, I also think works pretty nicely for this too. I think they would look nice put together as well. And this one you get a little bit more of those like mauve-y and gray. This is a little lighter, a little brighter. And then a couple of these shades, which are this one, and that one, have that sort of iridescent blue cast to them, which I do think works really nicely for winter time since it's such a like frosty blue. And then rounding out this sort of berry part of this conversation is the Berries and Cream from Dominique Cosmetics. This is one that I haven't gone back to in a hot second. Magnet is super strong, but definitely you still have those kind of cooler tones. The berries, you have this nice navy blue here in the almost center. Her metallic formula is not really my favorite. It's very soft and it's very kind of like satiny rather than being really like sparkly or special, but I think the mattes in here would work really nicely to build like a solid foundation, and then you could use some special singles to round that out. Alright, let's do predominantly blue palettes next because duh, winter. I have the Nabla Cutie palette. This is the Midnight one, and initially I wasn't going to put this one in, but then the more I looked at it, the more I was like, yeah, this is super wintry, super blue. And when I originally got the palette, these two shades here in the center, the embossing on them almost looked like a fine cable knit sweater, and so as I looked at that, I was kind of like, that makes me feel even more wintry, so I did go ahead and include that one. we have the ColourPop Dallas Mavericks. I don't think you can get these NBA palettes anymore, which is a shame because I think they were some of the most like colorful, innovative palettes that ColourPop has put out in a while. But this one, obviously, you have these very soft blue, gray type shades, and then the shade here has like an iridescent blue undertone to it, which again just feels very winter to me. I don't really care about basketball at all, but I do like those ColourPop palettes. The Jeans Baby palette, I've been talking about this one a lot recently, but this is probably one of my favorite palettes from the drugstore in quite some time. I love the blues that are in here. I think the pinks that are in here balance really nicely with the blues. And then this shade, although it looks very unassuming in pan, has like peachy and blue shimmers in it, and I think that is a really, really pretty sort of surprise shade for this palette. Next up is from Glam Shop. This is the Niebieski palette, and I don't know that you can still get this one, but definitely when I was thinking about like frosty blue shades, I couldn't not mention this palette. I mean, it's so perfect for the theme. The shimmers that Glam Shop does are like next level. If you want something that's a little easier to get your hands on and is currently on sale, this is the Icy palette from Glamlight. The blue, obviously, Icy palette. And again, frosty blues. This entire pile of palettes that I'm going through right now is going to be pretty redundant. It's all just those wintry, cool tone, frosty blue shades that I think work so perfectly. Then we've got Colored Rain, the Thunder palette. Again, frosty blues and grays. This shade up here gives me very much like Frozen vibes because it is so icy and light, but there is definitely still an undertone of blue in there. Then this is an oldie but a goodie. This is Smoke and Mirrors from Revolution Pro. And it looks like this. These were originally designed to dupe out the Pat McGrath palettes. Now, obviously, Pat McGrath doesn't have a palette like this, but some of the other palettes that they did in this format were definitely trying to dupe out her palettes. And then last up for the blues, before we head into other stuff, is BH Blueberry Muffin. Obviously, I couldn't get through wintry, frosty blue shades without talking about this particular palette. I think this one is so cool because you have this shade which is definitely very like taupey champagne, but it has some blue sparkle in it, which I really like. And then this is sort of the deeper cousin to that shade, which has more of a reddened base, but it's still not like red base. But I think that does help tie in some of these browns here. Beautiful. Beautiful. Alright, we'll talk through some gray toned palettes next, or what I consider just like cool toned palettes. This is the Eternal Eclipse from Lunar Beauty. And obviously you've got blues, grays, cool undertones. You've got some really nice like silver platinum type shades up here, which I really like. I can't get in and out of this palette without using this bottom row because I think they are so special. And as far as the formula, I do think it blends really nicely together. I think even these center shades are very complementary to what's like the other mattes in the palette, so you can kind of work all those together to make a really pretty look. Another Glamlight, Hershey's Cookies and Cream. I really like this palette. For how small it is, this is like small but mighty. If you were even thinking about picking up this palette, if this color story interests you at all, I would definitely consider getting it. The quality is top notch. And then I've got the Profusion Euphoria palette. Mine looks very beat up because Walmart drop kicked it all the way to my house, but again, very beautiful color story. The mattes blend nicely together. I like the metallics in here a lot. They do have more of like a buttery kind of consistency. My goodness, you guys, I can't be yawning this early in the morning. Well, I can be yawning this early in the morning. It's freaking early in the morning, but I need to get things done because I have to go get my kids at some point later today. All right, so that's this palette. Very, very pretty and affordable. $5. $5. All right, And then I wanted to mention the Pat McGrath and Revolution Pro dupe for the Pat McGrath. So this is the original, I think this is the Mothership 1, right? Very, very beautiful shades. And then the Night and Day is the Revolution dupe to that. And obviously you can see like this one was much more of a spot on dupe kind of palette. I don't know if Revolution started making some of their own color stories in this particular format to sort of get away from any sort of copyright issue they might have been facing, but whatever. And then the Natasha Denona Xenon, I debated about putting this one in versus like a New Year's Eve kind of thing, but I do still think this works nicely for wintertime. Obviously very cool tone, very sparkly. This shade here, although you may not see it very well, has some kind of like blue shimmers throughout it, which I think is very, very pretty, of course. And then I love the like different textures that we have in here. This palette, even though you're going to get a very similar like gray, black, white kind of eye look every time you do something with this palette, I do think that the formula of the shimmers is special enough to still make it worth getting. All right, and then last up, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7 more palettes. We're almost done. These are palettes that I thought were cool toned in general, but a bit more colorful to include in this kind of like winter theme. The first of which is the Giant Wolves palette from Odin's Eye. This was a limited edition palette, which I don't think they have out anymore, but obviously you have these very like soft blues. You've got this like fuchsia shade here. You even go into a little bit of like greens over here, which I still think works nicely for this wintry kind of concept or theme that I'm pulling palettes around. A lot of Odin's Eye in here. Next up is the Jewels and Gem palette from Odin's Eye. And again, just cool tones. You've got some mauves, you've got some sort of denim-y blues. I think this color story works really nicely as well to be kind of that wintry, soft, like wrap up in a sweater because it's cold outside. I'm excited to try out the new palettes. I know everybody's kind of like ho-hum on the color stories, but when I see Odin's Eye palettes, I think initially the color stories don't seem cohesive to me, but then the more I play with them, the more I like them, so whatever. And then I have the Rogue palette from Fantasy Cosmetica. Looks like this. This one, I don't know, is this one of the magnetic ones? I don't think it's supposed to be, but it feels heavier than the other palette, so maybe it is. I'll have to try that out later. But again, you know, cool toned blues. You've got some pops of purple in here. I even still think that these greens, because they're so smoky and cool toned in general, still work nicely for wintertime. Then we got the last Odin's Eye palette here, which is Norns. This is the original Norns palette, not the reformulated version with the more fancy cut pans, but I do think this one works nicely. Again, you've got lots of cool undertones. You've got some, like this multi-chrome in here I think is really pretty as well. It shifts to like pinky orange, yellow. I think that's a really pretty color to sort of offset some of the other stuff in this palette. Other than a handful of shades in here, I think in general everything is cool toned enough that it still works for wintertime. And then the cover art definitely gives me that wintertime vibe too. Alright, from Nomad, I have 2 palettes to show you. This is the Land of Fire and Ice. I don't know that they still have this one. They may have already retired it, but I thought this one was a really pretty palette. Again, you've got some really beautiful kind of icy blue shades in here, and I even think these sort of like purple, green, and blue shades over here fit really nicely with that prompt. The only thing is this center row here, which I tend not to go into anyway. And then again, these kind of swampy, gray, brown, green type shades, I still think work well for this kind of wintertime concept. Then we've got the Whistler Snow Lodge, which I think is actually one of my favorite palettes from them. And it looks like this. Again, I'm ignoring this row here, but everything else in this palette still fits the bill for me. These minty greens I think work really nicely for winter time, and then of course the blues and the sort of cool toned brown down here. And then last but not least is Aurora Struck from ColourPop. Obviously you have this really beautiful cover art, and then inside lots of cool tones, lots of finishes. You go from really light to really deep. I would say if you're looking to get only one palette that is representative of this kind of wintry color story, I would consider getting this one because you get so much bang for your buck. I'm sure it will be on sale during ColourPop's Black Friday sale, whatever they're doing. If you were not interested in this one, wanted something smaller, I would definitely consider either the Glamlite Icy palette, the Colored Rain Thunder palette. I think those would be good choices. If you can get your hands on Blueberry from BH Cosmetics, that would be a great choice as well, or potentially Whistler Snow Lodge. All right. And with that said, that is everything for this video. Let me know some of the wintry palettes that you have in your collection. I think at some point I will film a video on like Christmas themed stuff that I have in my collection, but I'm not quite there yet. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe before you go, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!